It all started on a quiet Sunday morning when I went to shut off the main water valve to my home so I could fix a leaky pipe in the basement. Simple, right? My house, my water, my business. But the moment I turned that valve, I had no idea. I was about to spark a full-blown war with the woman 2 doors down, Karen. And not just any Karen. This one's married to a lawyer who's also a cop. Yeah, you heard that right. Within hours, she was at my door, screaming about how her water had suddenly gone off too. I was confused at first. How would shutting off my own water affect hers? Turns out, our houses were connected to an old shared system no one had bothered to update since the 80s. I calmly explained the situation, even offered to have someone check the lines. But Karen wasn't having any of it. She accused me of intentionally cutting her off, said I was trying to control the neighborhood, and warned me I'd regret this deeply. I thought she was bluffing. But the very next day, I got served with a legal notice and official lawsuit demanding $10,000 in damages for emotional distress and unauthorized utility tampering. And who signed it? Her husband, the cop lawyer. My jaw hit the floor. How could someone actually sue me for turning off my own water in my own house? Now I'm stuck in this nightmare, trying to defend myself against two people who clearly know how to work the system. But here's the thing: they didn't expect me to push back. They didn't expect me to uncover what I did next. And trust me, what I found out changed everything. So before you think this is just another Karen story, buckle up, because it gets way crazier from here. So here's a bit of background on this Karen. Ever since she moved into the neighborhood, she's been trying to control everything from how tall your grass should be to where you can park your car. She even once reported a neighbor for having too many garden gnomes. No joke. Most of us just learn to ignore her drama, but it's like she feeds off control. And the wild part: her husband Tom backs her up on everything. He walks around like he owns the block, flashing his badge at HOA meetings like it means something in a residential discussion. When I first heard Karen complaining about her water, I actually felt bad. I didn't know our lines were that old and possibly connected underground. So I looked into it and even called a plumber to inspect the setup. That's when things started to feel off. The plumber said there shouldn't be a shared line between our homes unless someone illegally tapped into it. I didn't want to believe that, but it raised questions. Still, instead of talking like adults, Karen jumped straight to threats and lawsuits. The legal notice they sent was written like something pulled from a crime thriller, accusing me of sabotage, property interference, and get this, causing her severe hydration anxiety. I didn't even know that was a thing, but it got worse. I started noticing Tom sitting in his parked car across from my driveway late at night, just sitting there. Watching, it started to feel less like a neighbor dispute and more like intimidation. And that's when I knew something bigger was going on here. This wasn't just about water. Something didn't add up with how fast they jumped to legal action, and what I eventually discovered about their past made my stomach drop. But I wasn't ready to go public hate. After a couple of days of silence, I started doing some digging of my own. I pulled property records, utility maps, even old blueprints from the city archives. That's when I noticed something strange. Karen's house wasn't even supposed to be on the same water grid as mine. According to the original plans, her property had a separate connection routed to the back alley. So how was she getting water from my side? I called the plumber back and asked him to check the underground lines more thoroughly. Sure enough, he found an extra PVC pipe branching from my line toward her foundation. It looked like someone had tapped into it years ago. No permits, no documentation, just a quiet little theft buried under dirt and time. That's when it clicked. Karen wasn't mad that I shut off my water. She was mad because she was secretly using it, and I, unknowingly, cut her off. But instead of coming clean, she sent her co-lawyer husband to threaten me with a lawsuit to keep the truth buried. Meanwhile, The rest of the neighborhood started noticing strange things too. One neighbor said his water pressure had always seemed lower when Karen ran her sprinklers. Another swore she saw contractors sneaking around Karen's backyard months ago, but didn't think anything of it. It was like a puzzle coming together piece by piece, then the picture wasn't pretty. But while I was collecting facts, Karen was still playing dirty. Suddenly, I started getting HOA violation letters. My lawn was too dry. My trash bins weren't secured properly, and someone filed a noise complaint about my garage door. It was so petty, it almost felt like a joke. Except it wasn't. They were clearly trying to pressure me from every angle, legally, socially, emotionally, and through all this, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen and Tom were hiding more than just a water connection. Something deeper was bubbling under the surface. And I was getting too close. At this point, I felt like I was living inside some weird neighborhood thriller. Every day brought something new, more HOA letters, random cars slowly driving past my house, and even one morning when someone tossed a dead plant onto my porch with a note that said, "Hope your water stays off." It was childish, but it still rattled me. I couldn't prove who was behind it, but I didn't need to. It had Karen's passive-aggressive signature all over it. I knew I had to protect myself. So I started documenting everything: photos, videos, call logs, even the plumber's findings. I set up a security camera by my driveway, and sure enough, it caught Tom walking across my yard one night and standing near the water meter box. He didn't touch anything, but he stood there for a good minute, looking around like he was checking something or maybe just trying to send a message. That clip gave me chills. I took everything to a lawyer. He was shocked at how fast things had escalated over what was basically utility theft and intimidation. He told me to be careful, to stay civil, and most importantly, to keep collecting evidence. That's when I found out something that made my heart race. Tom wasn't just any lawyer. He had been reprimanded before for using his legal badge to threaten civilians in a previous job. It was buried deep in a complaint report, but it was there. This wasn't just some coincidence. This was a pattern. Karen and Tom had done this before, something like it. They knew the system, knew how to scare people just enough to make them back off. But this time, they picked the wrong neighbor. I wasn't going to roll over. The more they pushed, the more determined I got to bring everything into the light. And just when I thought I'd seen it all, something showed up in my mailbox that changed everything. A single document with one signature that could flip this entire fight upside down. The envelope looked official, no return address, just my name typed neatly on the front. I opened it, expecting maybe another threat or a legal warning. But instead, what I found made my hands go cold. It was a copy of a signed utility agreement from nearly 10 years ago. And on it was Karen's signature authorizing a temporary water connection to my line during some remodeling she had done back then. According to the document, it was supposed to be disconnected after 60 days, but that never happened. She had been tapping into my water ever since. What made it even more shocking, the form was never filed with the city. It was one of those shady side deals, and it looked like whoever had given me this document wanted me to see it now, at this moment. Someone was leaking info from the inside, maybe a former contractor. Maybe even someone who had finally had enough of Karen's games. I didn't know who sent it, but they clearly wanted the truth out. As I stared at that paper, my phone buzzed. It was a neighbor I barely talked to, quiet guy, kept to himself. He asked if we could meet privately. When we did, he looked nervous, glancing over his shoulder like he didn't want to be seen. Then he dropped a bomb. A few years ago, Tom had approached him with a similar water-sharing arrangement, said it would help during construction. But when the neighbor declined, Tom started threatening him with code violations and even hinted at legal trouble if he didn't comply. He never went forward with it, but the fear stuck with him. That's when I realized this wasn't just about my house. It was a pattern. Karen and Tom had been quietly pulling strings in the neighborhood for years, intimidating, manipulating, using their positions to scare people into silence. And now that someone was finally pushing back, they were willing to go to any lengths to shut it down. But the real kicker? That document in my hand was dated just 3 weeks before Karen's lawsuit against me. She knew exactly what she was doing. With that document in hand and my neighbor's confession, I knew I had enough to challenge everything Karen and Tom were trying to pull. I met with my lawyer that same day, and we drafted a formal response not just to deny the bogus $10,000 claim, but to counter with a complaint of utility theft and civil harassment. I attached the agreement, photos of the illegal water connection, and even the video of Tom creeping around my meter box. We sent it all to their attorney and CCD, the HOA board, for good measure. That move hit harder than I expected. Within 48 hours, everything shifted. The HOA, which had been mysteriously silent through all this, suddenly called an emergency meeting. Half the neighborhood showed up. Turns out, I wasn't the only one they had messed with. People started speaking up others who'd been threatened, fined unfairly, even pressured into home repairs they didn't need. Karen sat stiff at the end of the table while Tom tried to talk circles around everything. But the evidence I brought was too strong. The board voted to suspend Karen's HOA privileges pending a full investigation. The next morning, the lawsuit against me was withdrawn. Just like that, no apology, no explanation. But I wasn't done. I filed a report with the city utilities office, and after an inspection, they confirmed the illegal tap on my line. A fine was issued to Karen, and they were ordered to reroute her plumbing immediately. I thought it was all over, until I got one final surprise. An anonymous envelope slid under my door. Inside was a photo, grainy but clear enough to make my heart race. It showed Tom years ago, working behind someone's house, hooking up what looked like another unauthorized line. On the back, scribbled in shaky handwriting, it said, "You're not the first, and you won't be the last unless someone stops him." That's when I knew this wasn't just a neighborhood dispute. It was the beginning of something bigger. After getting that photo, I handed it over to the city inspector, along with everything else I had collected. Within a week, they opened a formal investigation into Tom's activities, not just in our neighborhood, but in nearby areas too. Turns out, there had been other complaints over the years. Nothing ever stuck because no one had enough proof or the courage to push back. But this time was different. The combination of documents, witness statements, and the old photo was enough to get the ball rolling. Karen went silent after that. No more HOA letters, no more late-night intimidation. Our house stayed dark most evenings, and eventually a for-sale sign popped up in her yard. She and Tom moved out without a word to anyone. Just like that, they were gone. The tension that had wrapped around our block for years finally lifted. Neighbors started talking more, sharing stories, even laughing about how we all just put up with it for so long. There was a weird sense of relief, like we had all been holding our breath and could finally exhale. The city ended up making changes to how shared utility connections are tracked, and the HOA added a policy requiring all major utility changes to be filed with them and the city. No more shady hookups or mystery lines. My water system was fixed properly, and I even got reimbursed for the extra utility costs they discovered I'd been covering. What I learned from all this? Sometimes standing up for yourself means uncovering way more than you expected. And while not every battle is easy, speaking the truth matters, especially when the people causing harm are used to getting away with it. So if you ever feel like something's off, trust your gut. You might just be the one who changes everything.